Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome in. While you are connecting and probably hearing a message that this video will be recorded, so that we can share it with you afterwards, I want to wish you a good Monday morning or afternoon, depending on where you're located in the world, which is actually something I would really like from you to learn from you. Where are you dialing in from? And what are you curious to learn in this webinar, in this panel discussion? Please type in chat. Hello Anouk, hello Alexi, hello Ian, hello Matt, hello Nee, hello Oslim, hello Mark, Robert, hello Fenya, hello Human Digital Group. I myself am joining from Gouda, where they have lovely cheese in the Netherlands. Welcome Patricia from Spain. Munich we have. Sydney, Australia. So that's definitely the end of the day. Switzerland. Nice. We have a good international crowd joining. Ho Chi Minh. Hello, welcome. Hello from the UK, Matt. Hello, Anke. Anke is also joining. Oh, it's really nice, Anouk. You want to learn how you can apply the information today to help future women in tech. Topic near to my heart. I used to work at Microsoft before, where that ignition in technology and females in technology was started, and I still bring it with me today to Lepaya. Welcome, Gabor. Also very curious to learn where you're dialing in from. Maria, welcome. Neil, welcome, if I pronounce the name correct. Soltes is the human development. Come in. And while I will ask my colleagues to take over the admitting in the waiting room for me, I still love to hear where you're dialing in from. Gray, Stockholm, yeah. Amsterdam and Gouda are also a bit gray today, I believe. And I think we are about ready to get started. I want to wish you all a very welcome Tuesday morning or afternoon for you. And as we already learned that we have quite the international crowd, I would like to take you through the agenda of today. I will, in a bit, introduce you to the speakers that I have brought to explore with you. What causes skills gap to grow? Current state of workforce development? Solutions to future-proof your talent? And with a special request, maybe a zoom in on women in tech. So interesting to see where that can take us. And of course, we will wrap up this Q&A and make sure that you are ready to leave this webinar fresh with ideas in 41 minutes. And this is also why this session is recorded. If you don't want to be present with the face on the screen, you can stay off camera. You're also very welcome to turn on your camera too, if you want to. If you have any questions, you can already type them in the chat, and we will have Q&A at the end. But if we see some interesting questions popping up, I might already ask them to some of the speakers a bit later on when we are interacting with them. So, who did we bring today? Well, yours truly is already talking, and you might be wondering who is talking to you. I am Lisanne Zeeuw, and I'm a public speaker in the learning domain, which is why I love doing webinars like this. And I am leading Lepaya's professional services team, where we work in close alignment with our clients, typically big four corporations, to understand their future workforce upskilling needs. And we do that at Lepaya, not only for my industry, but of course across industry. My background, as I shared, is at Microsoft in the technology industry. I worked a lot with schools and developing our future workforce together. What do people need to learn in school so that ultimately they will lead happier lives and we can all be productive in workforce. And on this screen, you might have noticed that we had Antonia Kuller from Hunkemuller in, but the autumn got the best of her and she is hopefully recovering soon. She will not be joining us today. But moving on, it is my pleasure to introduce you to Simon, who is a training program manager at Miracle, or Miracle, where he creates learning content for their platform continuously and is in continuous interaction with how people can learn and how people navigate learning. And Simon, may I ask you to introduce yourselves a bit more and let us know what is a key learning from 2024? We're nearing the end of 24 that you take into future proofing the skills of Miracle's workforce in 25.
Perfect. Yes, thank you, Lisanne, and hello, everyone. I'm super happy to be here. Very excited for this discussion. So I joined, or my adventure in learning and development began in 2017 as a English language trainer and soft skills trainer. Then I pivoted in 2021 to more of a L&D role, and then pivoted once again earlier this year, joining Miracle as the training project manager, purely with a customer-facing role. So I create e-learning and video content for our customers on the Miracle product suite. We have 5 products. So whenever there's a change to that product, an update or a new feature, I create a dedicated e-learning module on that change, and we push that towards our operators and sellers so they can understand the product and be more autonomous and aid them in their business success. And for me, a key learning this year is quite twofold. Of course, I'm going to say the buzzword everyone's been saying is artificial intelligence. I think
Ooh la la.
be a massive push for more and more AI literacy, regardless of your role and the willingness to adopt these new technologies. And with that, I think there'll be a big push as well for people to improve or get more familiar with emotional intelligence, like so to be more open and resilient to the constant change that is going to come with more and more AI and more changes in the tech that we use in our day-to-day professional lives.
Very interesting and intriguing to learn. And I think we can unravel that a bit later on in this conversation too.
Of course.
Um, with that, let me also introduce you to our second expert speaker of today, bringing in Marta Dimova. She is part of the global learning and development team at Electrolux, who focuses on Marta focuses on upskilling of power skills, the human skills, and the functional skills, which are more the technical skills at Electrolux. Marta, for you, actually the same question because I'm really intrigued with what that brings to you. What is a key learning from 2024 that you take into 25 to future-proof Electrolux workforce? And can you share a bit more about yourself before you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Simon, you took my AI speech. So I mean, next time I must check with you so you don't take it from me. But nice to meet you, everyone. And my name is Marta Dimova, and I'm part of Electrolux Group Learning and Development team. And we are a global household company. Maybe you have seen our ovens or washing machines and so on. And I'm really excited to be here today, share with you some experiences, but also gain some insights from you. And I'm originally from Bulgaria, hence the name, but I live in Stockholm, where our headquarters are located. One learning from this year, which is a bit scary, is already December. So, I mean, it is really time for some reflections. One learning from this year, I think, for us is been when it comes to skills, is to really start small, identify a challenge, but not HR challenge, but a business challenge, build, test, and learn from there, and use AI all the way. For me personally, Copilot is my assistant that I'm not paying to, so that's quite good, and it really is super helpful when it comes to simple things, even enhancing your emails, but also delivering a full presentation on how to analyze data and so on. So I think AI is super crucial for any project. So yeah, really happy to be here today.
Thank you, and a warm welcome to both of you joining me to help our audiences also understand actually what we can do to future-proof the workforce. And with that, and now that everyone has met our experts, let's get a better understanding on how to make our organizations and our clients' organizations future-proof. And in order to do that, we believe it's good to understand why are skill gaps growing in the global workforce. And while this is the question that I'm going to ask the experts, they can think of their answer. I would like to ask you, the audience, through a poll. Do you feel like skill gaps are widening in your organization? And you can pick one of the answers. Yes, across the board. Yes, but only in certain areas. No, skills are being effectively developed. Or I'm not quite sure yet. We see them coming in already, the answers. We will present them to you a bit later, but for now, a lot of people are saying yes. So while we get this information in from the audience, Simon, can I ask you, why are skill gaps growing in the global workforce according to your experience?
Perfect, of course. Well, I can't really speak to my experience at Miracle because I've only just joined at the beginning of October. But using my previous experience, a big pain point that I witnessed and what we could use as an explanation to growing skills gaps is that, firstly, like not all business leaders, I feel, are open to the idea of employees spending their work time on training and professional development. Like, I had the impression in my previous company was like, no, we don't develop talent, we hire talent. Our employees are here to work, they're not here to learn. Like, if they learn on the job, fantastic, but I'm not okay with them sacrificing or putting aside, I shouldn't say sacrificing, an hour or 90 minutes a week to learn or train on a certain topic. I feel that's a big part of it for me. In my previous company, I definitely felt like L&D and professional training was like the pretty garden that the house didn't need it. And I had to spend a lot of time basically, showing the direction and proving how we can sort of connect the dots between employees learning a new skill or becoming more empowered to eventually the company earning more money. So that was something that a big challenge for me, and I feel that's where a lot of these skills gaps are coming from, is that sort of mentality and that idea. It's not the same for every company, but I do feel that there's a big majority that don't really see the importance or put too much importance on that. Another one as well is we can't forget technology. It's advancing faster than ever before, and it can be
Yeah.
difficult to define what training that we actually need, and what training is not. Oh, sorry, what skills that we learn from whatever training will be necessary in the near future. Like if I use a personal anecdote, earlier in the year, I found myself in the job market for 6 months, and I used that time to just improve on a few skills that I felt were lacking on my behalf. One of them was Google Sheets and Excel. So I took a
Yeah.
lot of, yeah, I took a lot of self-paced courses, at a LinkedIn learning membership, which was great. But to be honest, at the moment, I don't really use what I learned because I've got a full access to ChatGPT, which is fantastic for analyzing data and just being that little helping hand when it comes to manipulating spreadsheets.
So you both have a personal assistant. Yours is ChatGPT and Marta is on Copilot.
Yes, at Miracle, everyone has full access to ChatGPT. We've got a lot of in-house GPTs as well,
Yeah.
which are just fantastic. Like I've got at least 2 or 3 windows open on both my screens every day.
Then you are also already learning the skills of how to leverage this modern technology, right? So
100%.
interesting. So summarizing what you're saying is, hey, not all business leaders have been open to the idea of spending work time on training. So
Mhm.
there are still skill gaps in place because of the not being able to learn or not being allowed to learn on the job.
Yeah,
And we are in an area or age where technology is advancing faster than ever before, and we need to keep up with that.
yeah, 100%. I think a lot of companies think that they can just hire their way out of trouble. Uh,
Yeah.
and
And I
they'll
think we're seeing a shortage in that, right? Marta, what is your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you said at the start, Simon, about the learning culture and getting the business on board, changing that mindset. I think skills has been always important, is no new concept, but I think today are more important than ever. And why? I think we mentioned the geopolitical shifting, the economic challenges, the uncertainty, all these new ways of working, the AI, the automation, and all of that. And I think those are leaving us with growing skills gap. So if we take AI and automation, which we touch up on just now, they're advancing so quickly that traditional educational systems, they can't keep up, which means that there's becoming a growing disconnect between the skills the business need today
Yeah.
and tomorrow and what the employees are equipped to offer today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that challenge is urgent. And we're seeing this every day in many articles and research. And I guess that's why many of you are also here today. And for me, one that stayed with me was the World Economic Forum talking about 2025, which is just around the corner. And they're saying that half of all employees will need reskilling in 2025. And
Yeah.
to name a few of the skills that they talk about is analytical thinking, which I think is very important soft skill that we all can could benefit everyone. Mastering technologies like AI, and also active listening and resilience. But the question I think for many of us is, okay, we see is important. We see a lot of research, all the shifts, all the data. We know what we need to work on, but how do we close that gap? And I think the answer here could be taking a proactive action. As I said in my intro, starting small, you can't solve the whole thing, but you need to start from somewhere. And I think setting clear talent development goals that reflect both your internal reality, so have data to know where your employees are when it comes to skills, what do they have, what do they need, and then the external data, what do we see that is coming, and plan from there, what do you need to do. So, and I completely agree with what you said, Simon. We really need to nurture that kind of culture of lifelong learning, one where employees have the tools and opportunities to learn and build on technical expertise, but also soft skills that will help them for today and for tomorrow. So I think it's a no-brainer. It's very important. We see out there. It's about how do we do something about it.
And I also would like to share what the audience is saying, because I will share the results that everyone agrees that either across the board or only in certain areas, there are skill gaps. So we're actually seeing those skill gaps, and we'll dive into a bit later. You already gave a head start to it. How can we solution into closing those skill gaps? And what I really liked also from the chat is Ian is sharing, as an educator, we see a growing gap between tertiary study and real world application of job skills. I really share that too, being a hiring manager, but also having worked in the educational space. There are a lot of programs that are very actively reorganizing, but processes in education are slow. And we have to educate the people also while at work, because it's happening too fast. We can't just rely on new people coming in who also need to learn a lot of working skills still, right? Niall also had a very interesting perspective, which I think we will cover on a bit later, that there is now a lack of robust skill mapping in a lot of organizations. We try to help there. We will put something in your toolbox at the end of this webinar called a skill gap analyzer. Hopefully it helps you a little bit with mapping some more skills. It's not fully robust yet, but getting there. And what I wanted to share with you is, we know it's unpredictable, huh? By 2030, 1 billion people will need to learn emerging skills to keep up with technology advancements, like in the research you mentioned, Marta. And half-life of the skills is only 5 years, which used to be a lot higher when our parents were in the workforce. The half-life of skills was a lot longer. So it's actually stunning how many skills we need to develop, or how quickly we need to adapt, especially, like both of you mentioned, in the fields of tech. And you can say, oh, maybe I'm not in tech. But actually, a lot of us now are in tech, because actually we need to use those modern technologies. We did a bit more research, and these slides will come to you, dear audience, so you do not need to take notes. It will come to you. But we learned that 2% of talents say that workplace demands are evolving faster than skills. While we usually see that people in the organization are quite optimistic about their own skills, everyone now acknowledges it's going quite quick. Interesting. And I would be curious to learn your stance also with both of you saying, hey, AI is definitely one of the primary factors driving change in the work according to employees. Both of you say that too. Do you have an example, Marta, that you see in your company where AI really changes the way you work or your colleagues work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's changing across different areas, from the product development side, where we have a digital team that is touching on how our product adapting nowadays. I mean, I don't think anyone would have imagined some years ago that your oven can read how fast your meal is cooking and what you need to do, or your fridge can tell you things. And all of this is with the AI advancement and the technology. But also, in difference to what Simon using ChatGPT, we're using Copilot, and we are now reviewing a pilot with 365. And I think having 365 is just incredible. I mean, you can record any meeting with the speaking notes. You can ask you, remind me who I need to respond. It just the efficiency. It truly boosts for me AI. So, and I think we're gonna see it more and more. And originally there was this perception of this will impact our jobs, or this might affect us as employees. But now I think there is a shift of seeing, no, that actually will help us to focus on things that we don't have time to, and we can prioritize.
Yeah.
And those admin tasks or those other tasks, we can let the AI support us and become more efficient.
Hence also both your comments on the developing emotional intelligence. I wanted to call it EI, but then we talk maybe a bit too much in abbreviation. But AI is developing fast, and we need to develop our EI. So that brings me to the next question. What is the current state of skills and workforce development? According to both of you. And I don't know, team, if we have a poll already coming up on this or if that is later. But we would really like to understand from both your experience at your companies, what skills are you currently training and what are learning teams' priorities? And from the audience, while they answer that, we would love for you to share which skill is the biggest priority for your workforce in the next 5 years. So which skill should be developed? As we agreed, the skills gap are widening. We can't just wait for educated people to come in. We need to get learning moving. So Marta, can you share a bit what the current state of skills and workforce development is in your experience in your organization?
Yeah, of course. So at Electrolux Group, I must say we are on a journey. We don't have all solved, and I think many other companies do, but we are on a journey towards skills-based practices across all HR processes and the whole umbrella when it comes to talent. And why? I think we mentioned a lot of the reasons earlier, but also, like many other organizations, we have realized that without a centralized system and also approach to understand employees' critical skills today and identify those capability gaps, then we limit our ability to plan effectively for the future. So we really need that. We see the value. Then is what can we do? One example of what we have done this year is that we took a step forward to collect data, to listen to our employees. So we had a global skills survey launched to all non-production employees globally. So imagine approximately 20,000 employees got this.
Ooh la la.
And this helped us map what are the soft and what are the technical skills that we need in our organization. So where are the gaps? What do they say they have? And then using that data, internal data and external trends, we can then prioritize and decide what are the skills that we want to launch now in terms of learning when it comes to upskilling. So take a conscious decision of what the right approach now, not any skill, but the one that they actually need today. And taking this, we then had launch a campaign where we had a blended learning journey per quarter on specific skills that they need in that moment. What I want to say here is that this wasn't just about data and technology and how do we collect the data and what do we do with it. It was also a lot about changing mindset. So moving towards skills-based practices, I think is really about understanding the challenge. So listen people, what they have to say, and work together with the business. So from the start to the end.
I really like that you're highlighting the business
Yeah,
challenge and not necessarily the HR or people challenge, but what
exactly.
are they or the business experiencing as a challenge, right?
Exactly. Yes, so
Yeah,
it's not an HR project for HR's sake, but it's really about everyone. And
yeah,
also, it's not just learning and development. I think it needs to come clear that it's about all HR processes, not just some. And it's not just a new technology, but it's a whole cultural mindset that we want to change.
Yeah,
yeah.
that's an interesting topic. Making the sort of it's not a HR, it is a HR topic in certain respects, but it's also a business topic. It sort of sits in the middle of those two departments. But that's something that to build on what you said, Marta,
Yeah.
in my previous experience with my former company, the way we defined our training roadmap, one of the sort of most popular training programs that we provided was an internal leadership training that we had for all of the leaders that were promoted from within. So, for example, we had a developer that would join the company, and after 18 months of fantastic performance, they'd receive a promotion. All of a sudden, they'd find themselves in charge of a team of developers, and they'd never done that before. So, rather than sort of look externally for some sort of external training for those type of profiles, we created an in-house training program, which I think we had in the end up to 60 participants, and we use that as we basically let the company's behavior and the business needs dictate what our learning and development offer was.
And very good that you have these milestone programs that people can get access to skills right in the moment when they need them, right? So with you, with the leadership program, and with Marta, with the quarterly blended learning program, that you can have it on the when you need it. Because when we are learning that skills have a half-time life value of 5 years, and even in some cases 2.5 years. If you learn them 2 years already prior to when you actually need them, they're almost outdated. It's crazy. What
Yeah.
we see in the poll with our audience is that it is quite diverse what people are actually needing in terms of priority. It's almost equally divided. Maybe we can assume, and of course, if someone in the audience wants to elaborate on chat, please feel free. But maybe we can assume a bit that skills gap are quite widening, and that there's a need for a lot of upskilling, which is why we have such a diverse spread. Ian is sharing, we are predicting that agentic AI use will totally revolutionize the education space. A set of AI agents focused on analyzing academic growth, building data. Oh, interesting. Yeah, very interesting to see. For those you can read it in the chat a bit more. And what we did, we launched a skill gap analyzer tool this year. I told you, sure, I shared already a bit briefer, and over 120 companies used it. And based on that data, we could distill the top 5 skills gaps that our companies facing, which you can see here. So not covering the whole world, but we do see that there is a big part in leadership where it's actually leading change. Hey, we have this constant change. How do I navigate this? How do you as a lead navigate this? But also using the more creative muscles in our brains. We have been training a lot on the rational side in schools and universities, but leveraging that creative muscle, thinking out of the box. While, as both of you were saying, doing more of the analytical skills with AI, understanding the fundamentals of AI, also leveraging how can you use data and tell stories with that. How can you leverage the harder skills, I understand the data, and merge them into the more human or softer skills, storytelling with data. So it's quite interesting that we see these top 5 skills gap now across industries. And then we see what has actually been trained in 2024 a lot. We analyze our clients' upskilling data to keep track of trends that emerge every year. And this year, we see that leadership, collaboration, and commercial skills are the most trained skills among the almost 200 companies we analyzed. And 2024, I think, was just the start for HR leaders as they expand their strategic role in the organization, because there needs to be coming a bit more awareness to closing the skills gap. Everyone is now looking at it. We're not there fully. If there are any questions about the data, please put them in chat and our colleagues would be happy to share. And then we go on to the final question of our panel discussion and webinar. What is the solution? That is maybe a bit, the solution is maybe a bit highly reached, but what is our solution, yours, mine, to closing the skills gaps and train the right skills for a changing future? To make sure upskilling positively impacts business goals. So we are actually actively tying into your comment, Marta, on the business challenges. How can we positively impact the businesses we work in or with? And I would love to give the floor to Simon to give a go on what the solution might be.
Perfect. Well, I'm not sure if I can give the solution, but I'll do my best with a few solutions.
Inspire us.
I think a good place to start would be in building and nurturing transversal partnerships within organizations. So breaking down silos between divisions and departments, and trying to push forward that we're all after the same thing. We're all after the same goal, which is the business moving forward and the success of the business. And with that sort of common goal sharing and insights, we can share cross-functional expertise. Like, one thing I would love to put in place at one point in my career, I'm not sure what it would look like or how it would work, would be some form of like transversal skills marketplace, sort of Uberizing the type of internal talent that we have. So for example, if you have a fantastic salesperson, one of their top skills is probably going to be presenting and pitching, and they would probably have a good idea or have some good tips on how to speak in public or give presentations in general. You could leverage that skill in another department for somebody who doesn't feel comfortable doing that type of thing. So I think that is it's a great place to start, is in leveraging internal talent, breaking down those silos between divisions, and also it boosts camaraderie. It creates links between different departments. You build an internal network, and I think there's only positives that can come out of that.
Very interesting. And you're actually leveraging the social learning aspect that we see
Totally.
a lot, and a lot of research has been done in learning, where when you learn with peers, that you actually absorb more, and that
100%,
you're in adult learning, that is. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's sort of building that internal network is something that I've seen I've only been at Miracle for 2 months, and that's something that's really pushed at the beginning, is that you spend within your 90 days, you meet and talk to as many people as possible, within your within your team, outside of your team, in whatever different geographies. Like, you're given a list of, say, a dozen people that you should contact within your first fortnight, and then you're encouraged every time you meet that one of those people on that list is, do you have any other names for me?
No,
I
it's
might be able
exactly
to
how
speak.
we did it
So,
when I joined. Yeah,
yeah,
so
and
super nice to learn.
yeah, that's
Super
great.
nice to learn, Simon.
And I
Mart,
think,
yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
I just
Go
had
ahead.
one of my other ideas for that as well, is to, like, we've spoken a lot about technology. Like, we're living in the golden age of generative AI. It's not going to be disinvented. I think we, as L&Ds, we need to be early adopters. Like, we don't really have a choice. If we're going to stress about AI taking our job, we sort of, to stay ahead of the curve, we need to adopt this technology first. And there's a lot of fantastic tools at the moment that can really help us scale our training and scale the content creation. If that's part of your scope, there's a lot of great software and platforms being created at the moment that will allow you to manipulate and leverage internal content and whatnot, or external content to create e-learning content, or generative videos that you could use in your training. So I think we really need to sort of keep our finger on the pulse and dedicate a percentage of our professional time to investigating and researching these tools.
Very interesting. So if I may summarize, which never does justice to the full context of what you're saying, is we should leverage the learning culture, or build it, and then break down those silos in the organizations, to leverage the top talents that you have in the organizations, leverage social learning, and also make sure that we adapt and absorb from the technology that is coming, to build that with us.
Yeah, 100%.
Marta, would be loving to hear some of the solutions that you have thought of for yourself, for your organization, and maybe for the audience.
Yeah, of course, absolutely. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's about starting from somewhere. So closing the skills gap is not going to be a one-time quick fix solution. So starting from somewhere is super important. What we did at Electrolux Group is, as I mentioned, we listened. So we got a lot of feedback. We understood where we are when it comes to skills and gaps. And what we decided to do is launch a new initiative within our upskilling portfolio called Power Skills. So we put there all the soft skills that we want to launch to our employees. We decided not to call them soft because when you call something soft, you might feel this is easy to learn and quite straightforward, but it's not. It's quite complex and it changes a lot, as we said earlier. But it gives you the power to do your job in any area, like the person in sales with presentation skill, you can grow from there anywhere, right? And what we wanted to do with this portfolio was that this is not just another e-learning that is going to go out there. Let's think about a blended learning experience per quarter that really brings value to employees, selecting a right skill in that moment that they need, but also the business need. If I take, for instance, last Q4, we selected prioritization as a skill to launch.
Yeah.
And you might be thinking, but prioritization is really big. Where do you start? Well, we ask the business, where should we start? And then they define the micro elements, what should be there. So they really highlighted self-awareness, using your strengths to leverage prioritization. How do you do it? Critical thinking and decision-making. And this was a blended experience where you don't just do a course, but you do a self-placement test, understanding where you are. You go through some theory, you go to live session, exchanging with your colleagues, and then you take a toolbox, apply to your daily work, because that's where the magic happens, right? And I want to wrap this up by saying this is an example of starting small, as I said earlier. So upskilling soft skills, so power skills, is just one part of the much larger puzzle when it comes to skills-based organization and practices. But it's really important to start from somewhere. And this example reminds me of a quote that I came across last week that I want to leave it with you. And the quote goes like this. A CFO once asked the CEO, what happens if we invest in upskilling our people and they leave us? And the CEO answers, what happens if we don't upskill them and they stay? So I think it's really important that we identify upskilling and where do we start, especially in today's world where hiring could be in freeze right now. So you can't afford bringing the external skills and talent, then you must do something internally.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Marta. And I really love how you highlight that we should start small, that we should listen to the business challenges and to the people, and that we can use power skills as a strategy to help develop the people, not naming them soft, but naming them power, giving the people some power. And while we do this, I would love to have one final poll up on the screen to get your sentiment, dear audience. And I will share a bit more about what we see for 2025. And I will, after the poll, also open the Q&A. So we ask you now, what is the biggest challenge your organization faces in closing these skills gaps? Where are you struggling with? Maybe we can, in the Q&A, have a bit of a ideation on where we might help you with that. And I will share in the meantime, while you're answering the post, what we see in the business need. We see this whole value loop where we as Lepaya also love to contribute. We understand and would love to understand your business needs, like Marta is saying. And we see with that 23% of global jobs will change due to industry transformation. So industries transform, sometimes slowly, sometimes very quick. And that transforms the business needs. It then transforms the workplace needs, which result into different needs for learning programs, which is why it's super interesting to have a very internal focused and or quarterly or adjusting real time training program, which you can adjust year over year or quarter over quarter to make sure that you stay relevant. These learning initiatives will, of course, then push for better behaviors and ultimately should result into behavior change leading to business impact. So aligning learning with business goals has been the #1 priority for L&D professionals for 2 consecutive years. And I think in our L&D world, we are getting better and better at it. But sometimes we need to have a bit more bigger seat at the table still. What you can also see in here, and I think data shows that leading companies focus already on these impact initiatives. And that's also because a lot of our executives are saying that organizations should help employees gain the relevant skills. And Marta's quote is a lovely testament to it, because what if you don't and they stay, especially in this market? Ending the poll, I will share with you the results that there is still a lot of toughness to winning the C-level buy-in for learning programs. We will give you some of the impact insights in your mailbox. So this will come to you, and we will give you a toolbox, I should say, with our skill gap analysis tool that you saw before. Hopefully that helps you to win over the C-level a bit by getting a better understanding, just like Marta did, getting an understanding of the organization, and just like Simon is doing, making sure that you leverage the right content and the right mindset in the organization to apply learning, and making sure that we have a blueprint available for you for impactful learning, where we actually learn from 3 members who are in our advisory board. So Lepaya's advisory board might be nice additional examples for you. And of course, with that, I will stop sharing the biggest challenges, but we can leave it open for Q&A. And of course, as Marta had such a lovely quote, Simon, is there anything that you want to conclude with while we ask the audience to open the chat?
Yes, of course. Well, just to touch on what you said about you mentioned just content in your previous point about learning content. I think and to tie it in with the sort of approach of thinking about the business need, like I think that's, for me in my current role, that's the business need is my North Star. That's what defines everything I do. So even though my current role is external facing, like all of the training that I create is only for clients, it's not for internals. I use the data that we can pull from our clients, as in like what sort of support tickets are being raised, what's a common pain point that our operators are having, and that's what I use to dictate the content that I make. And I think there's it goes both ways. We can find out, exactly, if we can identify exactly where our co-workers are having issues and where their skills are lacking, and how that ties in with the business achieving its goals, then we've got it made. That's what we really need to focus on. Like to quote the title of one of my favorite books about business, that's Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why. You've always got to think about your why and either work forward or backward, depending on how you look at it from there.
Thank you for sharing, Simon.
My pleasure.
And I'm just wondering, Anouk, you typed in the chat earlier that you're working on the Women in Tech. Is there any question that you have with hearing this webinar and this discussion on how we can bring, like, closing the skills gap to women in tech?
Yeah, well, thank you guys, first of all. This is great inspiration. I feel very excited. So that's great. Yeah, so I'm Anouk. I work in Amsterdam at Equals, and we're a company that's re-educating women to transition into tech, that they don't have any previous experience, but we believe that they have the features and qualifications that they need to get into it, and we just support them and give them also technical support in that matter, which is lovely. And I coach them through the process, and I teach them the soft skills. So this is incredibly valuable information that you've been telling me today, that I'm excited to gonna share with the women. I think what is a very interesting question for them is, how do you see a difference in skill gaps within men and in women?
Oh, interesting. I can take a head start, but I would love to hear from our panelists.
Perfect.
And then we will round it up. I will put already on the screen, if you want everyone to stay in touch, feel free to do so. But my assessment to that is that we do still see gaps between men and women. And mainly with nowadays, we focus a bit more on masculine versus feminine. So not always male versus female, but people having a lot of masculine skills and a lot of feminine skills. And that, in example, we train a lot in assertiveness at work, which we see more masculine people, also women, do a lot more than feminine people. And that also still holds for introvert and extrovert. So those skill gaps, there is a difference. I would not say more gap, but different. So the topics that are interesting there are still different. Marta, can you add to it?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, I must say. To be fully honest, at this point, we are not breaking the data so much on people demographics and attributes and so on. But we are seeing a little bit of difference between the needs in functions. So, for example, what marketing needs are soft skills and finance and so on. So I don't have an answer to this, unfortunately, because we haven't broken it per gender. But we started looking at it per functions. Yeah, maybe Simon, have you looked at this one?
I've got a bit of a mix of both of your responses, so I haven't got that much data. Like, definitely not in my current role, but in my previous organization, it was very aligned with what Lisanne's observations were. So definitely, like, sort of those people who were asking for more sort of assertive training or negotiation, yeah, were it was more feminine than masculine from where that demand came from. And Anouk, if you're interested, for those and for those in our audience who are based in France, there is a group called I'll just double check the name of it. I don't want to get things wrong here. The Paris Data Ladies that have a meetup every couple of months, and the last meetup was hosted in Miracle with our head of data who ran the whole meeting. So if anyone's interested in that, I'll just pop the link to their LinkedIn page in the chat.
Also,
Cool.
feel free
Thank you.
to
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Anouk, for speaking up, and also feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to help you to some of these groups in technology. So
Amazing.
thank you,
Thank you
dear
again.
audience. We will share the recording materials with you in the email following up. I just posted it in the chat for those who are dropping out. If you have any more questions, we will stay here for a little bit longer, but feel free to head to your lunches or afternoon drinks, depending on the time zone that you've been calling in from. Thank you a lot, Marta. Thank you, Simon, for sharing your insights. And it was a pleasure to help demystify this topic a bit for our audience.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Thank you very much. Have a great day, great evening, wherever you are.